This video is all about getting your Mini Cooper ready for a drive cycle and passing the emissions test. So I'm going to walk you guys through this step by step, and it's only 4 simple steps. And if you want to jump to the point of the video where the actual drive cycle is, I'm going to show you guys that on the screen. Hello world, this is Random Fix. In this video today, I'm going to show you how you're going to be able to set the monitors on your 2002 and newer Mini Cooper. And if you run into any issues, please check out the Smog tips playlist because I'll break down each component. And it's a good idea to check out the video titled What to Do to Smog a Car before you go ahead and do the drive cycle procedure. And if you guys want to see the drive cycle in actual action, go ahead and check out the Smog check passed in 6.4 miles, which I'll actually break down the exact directions on what to do and how you actually conduct the road test. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in to the emissions drive cycle for the 2002 and newer Mini Coopers. So before we dive into the drive cycle procedure, there's a few things that we have to keep in mind. Make sure your engine RPM is less than 3,000. Keep your speed under 60 and avoid large fluctuations in the gas pedal. And a couple of tips that I have to make sure this actually goes good and you don't have to do this for thousands of miles. Make sure your battery is in good condition as well as your alternator. Have about 3/4 or 75% of your gas tank full and park on level ground. Don't use cruise control or AC. Don't leave the keys in the vehicle. Most of the newer vehicles can actually detect the keys, and if you fail to go ahead and remove the keys and lock the doors before you start the drive cycle, this will prevent some monitors from getting ready and you'll have to keep doing the drive cycle. Make sure you follow all your state laws when you're doing this test because it can actually get kind of tricky. And if you need to decrease speed and don't want to cause an accident or a traffic jam, you might want to think about using your hazards. We need to know some vocabulary before we jump into the actual drive cycle here. So OBD2 is basically onboard diagnostics type 2. It started in 96, and before 96, each vehicle manufacturer had their own plug and the whole thing was a mess. So on your Mini Cooper, you have the same exact plug as they do on a BMW, and if you have a BMW, you want to watch the BMW drive cycle because it's a little different, and the same OBD2 connector here will actually work for a Ford. So it's pretty cool. It's a $20 tool, and you can use it on many vehicles. DTC stands for Diagnostic Trouble Code, and there's a pending code and a hard set code. A pending code is one where it actually has not triggered the check engine light on yet. It needs more information. A hard set code is one where it's verified the information. It knows that that problem is there. And if your check engine light turns on within milliseconds of turning on the vehicle after you reset it, what you have is an open loop situation. So basically you have some damaged wires or there's something that the computer is detecting right away. We have a MIL, which basically stands for the malfunction indicator light, aka the check engine light, the service engine light, the service engine soon light, etc. And when you're using an OBD2 reader, which I'll have a link to in the description box below, whenever you see OK, it's the same thing as complete, which basically means set and that it's ready. When you see an INC, that stands for incomplete, unset, and not ready. And whenever you see an NA, basically this means it does not apply to your vehicle, so skip it. We have a few monitors on your vehicle that we should become a little familiar with. The first one is going to be the O2 sensor, and this is the oxygen sensor. And There's basically on most four-cylinder vehicles, there's two of them. So there's one before the catalytic converter, which some people will call the CAT for short, and there's one after. So the one after is called the post, the downstream oxygen sensor, and the one before is called the pre-CAT or upstream. We have the oxygen sensor heater, and basically this heats up the oxygen sensor up faster so it can do a better job of monitoring your emissions. You have the EGR, which stands for the exhaust gas recirculation. We have the CATs, catalyst, basically all the same thing except for the catalytic converter is actually the part, and the CAT on the OBD2 reader is the actual monitor. There's the Evap, and this stands for the evaporative emissions control system. Basically, in short, this keeps the gas fumes out of the atmosphere. I'm going to show you where the OBD2 is located on your Mini Cooper.
So we're going to be using this very inexpensive $25 scanner. Scanner's awesome. I've been using it for at least 5 years now. So your OBD2 port on this Mini Cooper is going to be right here. And the best thing about it, if you look at the port, it's shaped a certain way, so you can't do it backwards. Let me go ahead and hook this up. So I've plugged in the OBD2 port, and it's getting power now. And now what I want to do is I want to come to the vehicle and make sure that the ignition is on. And by the ignition, what I mean is you're going to go ahead and make sure that all the lights on the vehicle turn on. And you can see that my check engine light is on right now. All these other lights on the vehicle turned on right here. And we're going to go back to the scan tool now. Alright, so with my scan tool plugged in, my ignition on, I'm going to go ahead and show you what you're supposed to do. You want to hit an enter, and the scan tool is going to go ahead and scan the car. I can go check the monitors on the vehicle.
This is going to be the start of the test, so we want to confirm that their check engine light is off. There are no pending codes, and if your check engine light is on, however, it takes a while for it to turn on, and you want to take a chance to see if you can pass the emissions test without having to do any repairs. You might be able to do so. So go ahead and plug in the OBD2 reader and reset your check engine light, and we're going to start the drive cycle. If you are one of the lucky individuals where your check engine light doesn't trigger right away and the emissions drive cycle goes well, go get your vehicle over to a Smog test center right away as soon as you get the monitor set. So here is the actual drive cycle procedure for your Mini Cooper, and a couple of things that we're going to go ahead and remember is about the gas, parking on level ground, keeping your engine speed low, and keeping the speed under 60 miles an hour, and no large fluctuations in the gas pedal. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start the vehicle when it's cold. So it really helps to have a timer when you're doing this, because you're going to start the vehicle and you're going to let it idle for 2 minutes and 10 seconds. And this is going to go ahead and attempt to set the monitors on the secondary air system and do an evap leak detection. Step 2, after 2 minutes and 10 seconds of idling, you're going to go ahead and accelerate to 20 to 30 miles an hour. Maintain a steady speed for 3 minutes and 15 seconds. And this will go ahead and establish a closed loop system to get your oxygen sensors ready. And step 3, we're going to go ahead and accelerate to 40 to 60 miles an hour and maintain a speed for 15 minutes. Now the catalyst monitor is going to be evaluated, and keep in mind, some vehicles, when they're older, they have a lot of miles in the condition of the vehicle, you might actually have to do this test a little bit longer than 15 minutes. So I've had cars where I've had to do this for an hour. So find yourself a back country road if your catalytic converter is not ready, and as long as you can maintain a constant steady speed between 40 to 60, this is really going to help you set that catalytic converter monitor. Right at the end of step 3 here, before we go down to step 4, which is going to basically have us come to a complete stop, we want to do something that's very important. As we're decreasing speeds from 40 to 60 miles an hour down to a complete stop, we want to basically let our foot off the gas pedal all the way. You want to make sure you don't shift gears. You want to make sure that you do not touch the brake pedal and get the vehicle speed to under 20 miles an hour. And that is so crucial in setting some of the EGR monitors. So you want to make sure that step of decreasing from step 3 to step 4 is not overlooked. So again, foot off the gas pedal, do not touch the brake, do not shift any gears, and get your speeds to under 20 miles an hour. And once you get under 20, you can go ahead and proceed to step 4. Step 4, come to a stop, idle the engine in gear. So if you have an automatic vehicle, you want to go ahead and idle in drive. Or if you have a manual transmission, idle in neutral for 5 minutes. And now it's going to go ahead and evaluate the tank leakage. And here's the biggest hint of the drive cycle. If any of these monitors are not ready, you want to focus on the unset monitor.
And when you get back from your test drive, now you could go ahead and check the monitors, and if any of them are incomplete, you could go ahead and focus on the ones that are incomplete.
And in case you get back from your test drive and your Evap monitor is unset, you want to continue to follow the recommendations as far as parking on level ground and making sure that your tank is not 100% empty, because most vehicles will not oftentimes do the Evap test with a completely empty tank. So my sweet spot for the gas level is always about 3/4.
You want to scan it, and if everything is done, it'll say 0 codes incomplete, 7 that are complete, and 4 that don't apply, and 0 codes found. And this is a 100% chance that you're going to go ahead and pass your emissions tests as long as you haven't altered anything on your vehicle and your vehicle passes the visual inspection as well, which I'll cover a little bit later.
And congratulations, if you've done everything correct, your car is ready now to go and get tested at a smog station. And on your O2 and newer vehicles, only the OBD2 readiness test and a visual inspection is going to be performed. And on a visual inspection, they're going to check for altered parts like cold air intakes. If you have a cold air intake, you want to make sure that it's legal in your state. So in California, for example, you have to have a carb number on it for it to be legal. Throttle spacers, they'll check for cracked vacuum hoses, missing catalytic converters, and what they'll also do is they'll go ahead and put their foot down on the accelerator really hard to see if any smoke comes out the tailpipe. Currently for California, on gasoline powered vehicles, on any 2000 and newer vehicles, only one monitor can be unset, which is the Evap. However, some technicians will not let you pass with an incomplete Evap monitor. So if that happens, drive to a different station or keep doing the Evap drive monitors to get it ready. And a couple of other things to keep in mind, because you're watching this video, you might have actually purchased a vehicle and you're trying to get the emissions ready. So the seller is actually responsible for the smog. And normally this is due within 90 days of the sale. In most states, it cannot be waived, even if they read as is on there. However, if you want to sell a vehicle that will not pass an emissions test, you can sell it. You just got to sell it to a dealer or dismantler. But you're not normally supposed to sell it to another consumer because they have to have registration tags to drive on the street. And that is the seller's responsibility again. And if you guys have checked out my previous videos, you guys know that I always show you guys how to do this. Never buy a vehicle with any unset monitors. So if the inspection monitors are not ready, I would normally come back another day. I would think about it a little bit more before I actually pull the trigger on that vehicle. And 99% of the times when the emission monitors are not ready, it's because of a seller or dealer has reset the check engine light in order to cover up an existing condition. And 1% of the times it happens from a bad battery. But you also need to figure out then why the battery died, because that still has to be remedied. And electrical issues on Mini Coopers are not cheap to deal with. And this is the order that inspection monitors normally get ready in. So the first thing that gets ready is going to be the oxygen sensor heater, then the oxygen sensor. After the oxygen sensor is going to be the EGR, and the catalytic converter normally will get ready after the O2 sensor has gotten ready. So if you ever run into a situation where your catalytic converter and your O2 sensor are not getting ready, focus on the O2 sensor element first. And last to normally set is the Evap. And here's the diagram on a typical 4-cylinder vehicle. And most inline 4-cylinders have 2 oxygen sensors and 1 catalytic converter. So we can see the diagram here. Here's the motor. The exhaust is going to come out. It's going to go through the headers here, down the exhaust, down pipe, and it's going to go past the first oxygen sensor here, the upstream or pre-cat oxygen sensor, and then it's going to make it through the catalytic converter here, and then it's going to pass the downstream or post-cat oxygen sensor. And these two oxygen sensors basically work together to measure the efficiency of the catalytic converter. So if you ever run into a situation where somebody tells you your catalytic converter is bad, it may be bad. However, it's always a good idea to make sure that the oxygen sensors before the catalyst and after the catalyst are working correctly, as well as before you change out the expensive catalytic converter here, do a 5-gas analyzer test, and you want to make sure that that problem is actually remedied before you throw a new catalyst in there, because if you throw a new catalytic converter on your vehicle and you have a problem with the actual engine and it's running too rich, it's going to go ahead and burn up the catalytic converter again. So you're going to have to repeat that whole repair. It's going to be very expensive. It may work for a year or two. However, it's just not going to last you 7 or 10 years. And once the exhaust has passed the downstream or post-cat oxygen sensor, it goes down into a resonator most of the time, and out to the exhaust tip of the muffler and into the atmosphere. And here's my 9 tips for passing an emissions test the very first time, and some things you should keep in mind. Number 1, make sure the vehicle is running right. Seek assistance before you actually get the vehicle tested if you have any concerns and you verified that the emission monitors are not ready. You want to do this before, because if you go in and get your vehicle tested and it fails, that data is going to be reported to Carfax and AutoCheck. It will actually reduce the value of your vehicle. And by having a little OBD2 reader, you can make sure you pass the very first time, so plan ahead. Number 2, make sure that the check engine light is actually working, but it should be off. So before you buy the vehicle, you want to go ahead and do a test cycle. So put the key in the ignition and turn on the ignition, but not the motor. And you want to make sure that that check engine light is actually there. I have seen many times at both auctions, private party, and dealerships where the check engine light has been removed. And if you end up in that situation, it's going to be very costly. Number 3, go ahead and make sure that the tires are inflated properly, because this will reduce the load on your Mini Cooper, especially if you have a turbo model. You don't want the turbo working extra hard just because the tires are underinflated. And number 4, change your oil on time. The motor oil on the Mini Cooper is responsible for a lot of different operations, including making sure that the timing chain is properly lubed, because if you avoid and delay your oil changes on your Mini Cooper, you're going to run into some serious issues, and these issues are going to cost you $1,500 to $3,000 to go ahead and fix. So make sure you change your oil on time. Use premium gas on your vehicle. On the Mini Coopers, especially the turbo models, there's a lot of buildup that actually occurs in the intake, and they have special walnut blasting devices that actually will clean up a lot of that, and that repair could cost you about $1,100. However, if you do use good quality gases, you can avoid such repairs. And use fuel additives. My favorite and safe fuel additive that I like to use is called Lucas Oil Upper Cylinder Lube with Injector Cleaner, and this is very affordable. I'll have a link to it down below. Check out Real OEM. You can actually find your factory part number by putting in the last 7 digits of your VIN number, and if you have the actual factory part numbers, you can put them in eBay and Amazon, and you'll be surprised how discounted you can get the components and the parts. Number 8, do not disconnect the battery. Always use a battery saver device, and they're about $15, and I'll have a link to it down below. And what that does is it allows you to basically keep your car's data so you don't have to perform this drive cycle in case you're having to change a battery. And number 9, make sure that you know what's covered under the federal emissions laws. So for California, the emission warranty most of the time is 7 years or 70,000 miles, and it's 8 years and 80,000 miles for federal emission vehicles. And this includes such components as turbos. I've seen many people pay for such things as emissions related components out of their own pocket, when in fact they were actually covered by the vehicle's federal emissions warranty, but either the shop owner didn't know or the consumer didn't know, and they ended up paying thousands of dollars for. In the case of a turbo here, the turbo is covered under the emissions warranty. If you found this video to be helpful, please comment down below and let me know how it went with your drive cycle, as well as giving the video a thumbs up.